Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Mudutu Effect. It's Matthew Lay here. I'm gonna do a short, I hope, on incenses. You know, that stuff you burn, it creates a smell, smokes up a room. Not that one. Stop it. What's the first thing that you do when you pick out an incense? What's the very first thing you do? Well, you read what it says, what its purpose is. And then the second thing, guilty as well, I'll turn around and pick it up and go, I smell it. Now, incense in general is classified as a trigger. Makes you think of something in general. Now, with that being said, what about the incenses that are made with a specific purpose in mind? Now, the reason I'm saying that is, did you know that some incenses had sulfur built into them traditionally? Some of them have camphor. I guarantee you, once those are, no, it's not going to be the same. Traditionally, these blends are made with a specific purpose, and usually when they're made by hand, they're made with intent. So, for example, like the banishment incense that I make, it's not a smudging, it's not a purification. This is a get out type scenario. So you need to be cautious of reading the label and going by the scent that you're smelling. Now, if you want just a flowery smell, go to Wicks and Sticks and they'll be glad to hook you up. But for magical application, think about what's being put into it, what its purpose is. Your intent following it is an energy transfer. There's been a lot of research over the years. Russia and the United States, Canada, UK have all done this research about not only the microparticles that are in the incense smoke or smoke in general, but also how it transfers an electrical charge, or it can damage circuit boards and things like that, of that nature. But if you read more in depth from a magical application standpoint, or we'll call it magical physics, when we're transferring energy, we're focusing energy using the intent of the smoke to carry our will. Now, so by these papers and all this research, it's being done properly. It's carrying our electrical impulse across. Now, as we all know, different stones, different herbs, different types of woods, everything has a different application for or a certain energy field around it that can be applicable to a purpose. Now, let's just focus on incense. So, things along the lines of adding dragon's blood. Yeah, we know where it comes from, but why is it being used to amplify the purpose of it? So, go back to banishment. Banishment, the one that I use, I like Donna's description from the broom closet. She calls it a spiritual shotgun. I love that description. But anyway, the point here is that if you look at my labels and you see banishment, this could be, let's say this entity that you're trying to talk to wants to communicate more, and you're trying to kick it out. Just flush it out. Well, and that be the case, then what you're going to do is actually make it angrier. It'll leave, but there could be repercussions behind it. So be conscious of what you're burning, aside from the carbon monoxide and everything else. You want to make sure you're in a well-ventilated area, unless you're a traditional ceremonial, and we like to fill a room. But things, know what's in them, know what the purpose is, know what the intent was behind it when they made it. I know a lot of the incense blends I make are traditional. They're from old grimoires. But behind that, some of these have been modified to reflect modern times. In a recent interview on Tripping the Void with Sarah from Hurley, I said that a lot of people sage themselves before they go into an investigation, a paranormal investigation, and afterwards. Well, I do kind of the similar, I guess. When I show up, I burn incense to honor them, to say thank you for allowing me to come into your home. I seem to get better results by doing that. If I notice that and also I take in consideration where I'm at. The recent ritual that we did, we knew this is a First Nations land at one time. All this was. And so I made sure that tobacco and lavender and willow were in my blend. Even though it's not a traditional application that I would put in my normal incense for that ritual, but it's out of respect. So sometimes you have to modify these blends yourself to the area or who you're trying to communicate with. So just be conscious of relying on the scent, the trigger, and focus more on the intent and the will. I'm not saying the trigger is not important. Trigger actually activates that portion of your brain that makes you think of that additional item, whereas the intent and will could be the driving force behind it. So if you have too much of a trigger and not of the intent and will, then you can just be relying on makes you feel good. Be conscious of these things, be safe with it, and ask questions when you pick it up. There are some instances that are required by traditionalism to have like sulfur and camphor and things like, mugwort is great to use. I personally enjoy using mugwort. But it's also something that you want to keep in mind that you really want to use it only outdoors. Henbane is used in incenses, and sometimes henbane, heather are the primary ingredients in fern for weather magic. Well, henbane is poisonous, so you pretty much don't want to burn that indoors. It would be high doses of it in an enclosed area. It could be bad for you. Outdoors, you're safe. So just be conscious of these things. People like me who makes the incense usually put a warning label, burn outdoors only, things like that. But do ask questions. So. And try not to rely solely on what you smell on the package, because sometimes when it burns, it smells completely different. I've got one for the airs, not the element air. Phonetically, it's aethyrs. And it's more for, that blend is for empowering the individual on multiple world levels. Well, the trigger aspect works. The incense itself has a pleasant aroma, but it smells nothing like what the package smells like. So don't get so wrapped up in the scent that you smell on the edge of the package. Though it may be pleasant, it may be nice to trigger, but look for the intent and don't forget to add your will. Don't let it do all the work. You're going to have to apply yourself to this. Once again, thank you for watching another episode of the Mudutu Effect. Matthew Lay. Catch you next time.